Right, I let the numbers crop up. I'm privileged to be invited around to see Terry Ellis. Terry's here, and Terry's going to be talking about his life as a young kid in the care system. And again, we see the same pattern, and this is something we see a lot with the podcast I do. The care system, and then that then leads on to the juvenile institutions, to the adult institutions. So much pain, and luckily some people get through, but others don't. We see so many suicides, we see so much alcoholism, we see so much drug addiction, and we see it totally underfunded. There's no understanding, there's no healing. And the best thing for healing is justice, and justice, people need to speak out, they need to be heard, and that is being suppressed all the time. But Terry's here to tell us about his unique journey. We've also got a lot of publications here that we'll push as well. And I come to Terry because Terry was doing, was it Put Down a Knife or something, was it?
Change Your Life, Put Down a Knife.
Change Your Life, Put Down a Knife. Two of my good friends, Tony Turner and Chris Lambriano, were heavily involved, and I've seen Terry on there. So Terry, thank you so much.
Thank
you so much. So right, so let's start off. I mean, you've been in the papers.
Yep.
You come to notoriety because of a robbery that occurred at a data centre.
Yeah, it's Verizon Business Centre in King's Cross in 2008. I think we called it the Ocean's 11 robberies.
And what did you get sentence-wise for that?
I got 16 years, 9 months.
How much time have you spent all told locked up?
In prison altogether, just over 17 years.
That's a long time, isn't it?
It's a long time, yeah. It's a waste of time.
Yeah. So let's take it back to like the early years, young Terry. So, where you're from, what was the family dynamics, and what occurred during the early years of your life?
Yeah. I lived in Camden Town as a young kid in Royal College Street. It was quite a poor area, and my mum was a single parent, and most of the kids along my street were all single parents.
And it's good to talk about this.
Yeah, and also there was a few families, a lot of alcoholism, a lot of violence, a lot of abuse, and we were sort of feral kids. We found solace in each other's company.
Right.
And as 8 or 9 of us, we then sort of we'd get up in the morning and come out of our houses, and we would go out for the day because we didn't want to be around the violence, the drink, and all the stuff that was happening in your homes. And I'm talking like, I'd go around my mate's house, Tony. His dad would be there drunk, and he'd come in, and he was Irish, and he was get out the fucking way, moving in there, and then hit the mum. Unfortunately, he had a brother. He unfortunately committed suicide, and Tony has spent the last 50 odd years drinking, being very aggressive, and
there's a lot of learned behaviour there, isn't there?
Oh, massively, yeah, massive. Yeah, he everything that he didn't want to be when we spoke as kids, he actually turned into. He was very violent to his girlfriend, violent to his kids, and I never seen him now, unfortunately.
I brought up 4 kids on my own. The boy's mum left. She had terrible problems, and I won't share that because it's not really fair, But I ended up skint. I had more in common as a copper with people being brought through the custody door than I did with my own colleagues. So I do understand, and I talk out a lot against single parenting. I was one. I feel I'm qualified to talk up, and and it's when you put the kids to bed at night, these little shattered lives, someone's got to pick up the pieces, and if they don't, they internalise, and that's when it all goes wrong,
Yeah, I think as a criminal, when I first started out, I had all good intentions of turning, my criminality into something that was going to feed my kids, educate them, give them a nice house and a car and everything else. Unfortunately, the lifestyle dictated that when I did get it, I then had to go out drinking, partying, meeting different women. So what turned into something that I thought was noble and honourable because that was my upbringing. I never had a good education, but I'm not going to blame my education. But I thought it was noble. But I then turned into everything that I hated and despised.
I think you'll find that with a lot of things, definitely in the police, where you think, I want to do well, and then you end up in a drinking culture. Yep. Divorce rates are massive. There's a lot of domestic violence in that world, and even in business as well. Take the media, there's a lot of cocaine use. So the road to hell is paved with good intentions, as they say, don't they? It all starts off right in here, but life takes a different turn.
Yeah, and with that lifestyle, I was going out, I was doing cocaine every night. I was importing it, I was selling it, and I was using it every night. So so it never, it never enhanced my life. It destroyed my life at one stage.
What happened though in them early years? Because we were discussing before that you did end up in the care system.
Yeah. Well, as a young kid, I was getting in trouble. My mum was a shoplifter. So I assumed it was okay because she used to take me out in the evenings to put me through warehouse windows and tell me to pass out boxes. So I would spend all night getting boxes and bringing them home and stacking up the front room. I realised it was okay to do this and get away with it, but it was bad news to get nicked.
Yeah.
So when I got all these boxes for her, she was quite happy. She was really happy, and she bought us all clothes. So as a young, I think I was 10 years old then. I then realised it was okay to go out and take exactly what I want and give it to her. Yeah. And as long as she was happy, we were a happy family. We were fed, we were clothed, and we were watered. Yeah. So it was a learned behaviour from her.
Of course.
And unfortunately, I then met.
But there's no one saying don't steal. Stealing's bad, was there?
No one. My dad was an armed robber. He done a life sentence for murder, killed a security guard, him and a couple of his friends. But these are my role models, and the people that I grew up with were all villains. So there wasn't one person, that actually come and said, go and get a good education and be a good boy at school. This is about getting out there and earning your way in life. And if we can help, give me a call.
Isn't it funny when you get to society, you get caught in your bubble and you're unaware of these other communities all interacting, all passing each other's lives, but you don't know they exist, just your world, as it were.
Well, it was a norm. It was actually completely normal. I was actually flabbergasted when I got older to think that it was okay to actually pay for your kids' education and do this. All the things that I never had. Yeah. If I would have gone to university, college, and been given all the enchanters, all the advantages in life, I probably wouldn't be sitting here talking to you.
No, I know.
Because I proved over the last 4 years or 5 years, I've been writing books, I've been doing articles, I write kids' books now as well. I'm quite versatile.
Yeah, of course.
But I use my, as I said, I was dyslexic. Because I was dyslexic, that made me frustrated. It then excluded myself, and it made me very angry. So I never actually went into university or college. All I did was go out and try and earn money. So I thought that money was what it was all about, and money was confidence in me.
At some point, the system intervened. The institutions.
Yeah. I was as a young kid. I was 11 years old. My mum woke me up one day. Said, "Come with me. We're going somewhere. There's a bag of gear," and she took me down to a place called Langtree Walk in Swiss Cottage, and said, "I'll be back later."
Langtree Walk.
Yeah, so it's a children's home.
Is that near the Langtree pub? There's a pub down there.
It's on the other end of that block of flats.
Yeah, I know it.
Yeah.
It's the back end of Kilburn High Road. Yeah.
It's like a little Fort Knox. It is, and then I can remember going here, and I said, what's happening, and they said, just go in that room there, wait there. I looked out the window, and she was walking up, and she never even looked around.
Your mum took you down there, and you had no idea what was going on.
I had no idea what was going on, and then I thought she'd come back from me. I waited all day, and that evening. I said, I want to go home. I want to go to my mum. And then the guy just turned around and said, "Look, you ain't going." I remember that, there was 2 guys and 2 women. And as I went to walk through the door, he said, "Come back here," and he went whack straight in my face. And it's the first time I've ever been hit. I've been caned. I've been whipped with a belt. But I've never been punched in the face by a grown adult.
A grown man.
Yeah, and I was scared. And the next thing I went to cover up. He then hit me again, and then the other guy grabbed hold of me and they threw me on the floor. And then all 4 of them were sitting on me and telling me to calm down. And I thought, fucking hell, what's going on here?
Yeah.
And this went on for about a week, and until I realised that I wasn't going to go anywhere, and then.
And you was placed in a secure unit.
Well, what happened? I stayed there for about 4 months.
Right.
And then one morning they come and said, "You pack your gear, you're going." I said, "Where am I going?" I said, "Just pack your fucking gear and get in the van." And next thing I went to a place called Stanford House in...
Shepherd's Bush.
Shepherd's Bush, yeah.
How many times does that place crop up?
Fuck me.
All the time, Stanford House.
Yeah. And I thought, fuck this. And then I had to go at one of them, and they beat me up. And then I thought, I'm not going to take this lying down. Yeah. I'm just going to keep it. And after a couple of days, they just give up on me and said, that's your bed, that's your locker. Right. But then I see other kids coming in.
And they got it.
And they were standing up all day. They wouldn't make them sit down. They would abuse them. You know,
it's a bullying culture.
It was like
and the staff, the orderlies, would have known about this.
Oh yeah. You know what? It was actually encouraged simply because if you were a tearaway kid and you thought that you were it, and we chuck you in there and we can prove that you're not the big man you think you are. But you're talking, these are 11-year-old kids.
Yeah.
You know, when you go to a place and you feel like you don't know what's going on, you put on a false front. It was all false bravado.
Of course, yeah.
But they weren't trained in looking after kids, so they then took that bravado as him being aggressive, animated, and destructive, and they threw him in the lion's den.
How many times do you see this with kids on the street and all that, and you know it's just fear that's driving all this?
You know what? I know only from myself. I know I see it all the time, but for me, I then, you know, I was a real nice kid. You know, I was kind. I helped the old lady at the end of the road. I got her milk. I got her shopping sometimes. I always waved, and I was doing good deeds. And I wasn't really that bad a kid, but I then got put into these places where I had to do press ups, sit ups, and I had to turn myself into an animal.
Yeah.
Because you know what, the only way to survive is to be bigger than everyone else. That's what I thought, and also I had to be more aggressive than they were. So if someone said anything to me or done anything wrong to me, the response was very disproportionate to what they'd done, because I had to prove to it, not just to them, I had to prove to everyone else, this is what you're going to get if you come near me. And it just made me a real fucking horrible person.
Yeah.
But I knew underneath it what I wasn't. But to survive in Stanford House, if you know about it, you got 5 O'Hare, Hanby, Hastings, you got the CP there, and everything else. I remember going to the swimming pool and someone.
Can you explain what they are?
They're all different houses, so they've got different age groups.
Right.
And so what you do every morning, you have to get up and you have to get in a queue. You go to the education department. That you all go in different lines.
And a lot of these were run on a very strict discipline, military.
It was marching.
Marching,
You had to march over. You had to march back.
All staff were ex-military.
All ex-military, ex-old Bill.
Right.
And you know, and they didn't take any shit. You know, if you stepped out of line, you got a clock around the ear roll, and you got a whack. It wasn't a slap. It was a knuckle in the back in the side of the nut, and you felt it. You cried.
I know, bringing up 4 boys. That was my house, and I had to keep order.
Yeah.
But I never had to lay a finger on them. Do you know what I mean? And I don't want to either. Yeah. You know, I never wanted to. But for a grown man to punch an 11-year-old in the face, I mean, a line has been crossed there.
Do you know what? At the time, I was scared. You know, I normalised it for years. I never realised that was anything other than normal.
Yeah.
You know, because I went from there. I went to a care home in Wiltshire. And when I played up there, the grown-ups there grabbed hold of me, shook me, and threw me down the fucking stairs. So you know, I went from Lancashire Road getting punched in the face in the care system. I went to Stanford House getting beaten up by other kids and the staff sometimes, and then I got moved to Greenacre because I thought, well, this is going to be great. But the minute I stepped out of line there, I remember this old guy called Reg. He was ex-military as well. I was in my mate's room. He said, "You got to go to your room." I said, well, give me a minute. And when I came out the stairs, he grabbed me and he threw me down the stairs. And I thought, fucking hell, what's all this about? Because I was never used to growing up. My dad was a boxer,
right.
And he was a big guy. And you know what? He never ever laid his hands on me. He'd give me a belt with a belt.
Had your dad been through that system, do you think?
Me and my dad, we've never even had a conversation about his upbringing or his life. Right. He was a boxer. Very hard man. He was a champion boxer in the Merchant Navy, and his idea of teaching me anything was to box. That was it. You know, me and my brother boxed each other, and if everyone fucked with me, he'd say, "Go and hit him." There was none of go and talk, go and sort it out properly. It was go and whack him in the jaw.
I mean, I do these podcasts, and the same pattern constantly occurs, and also the same period of time, the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s, sometimes the early 50s. And a lot of them were ex-military, have come out of some of them military campaigns, very damaged, traumatised individuals themselves.
Yeah.
Violence, and there's a lot of sexual abuse went on. I hear that consistently, and how that demasculates people, and it totally screws up people's cognitive ability. And then from there, just the dysfunctionality of life and the hatred and the anger.
Well, as you just said when we spoke earlier, hurt people.
Hurt people.
And, you know what? And a lot of them officers were being hurt and abused themselves. You know, and they never had a way out. They never had an opportunity to talk. We was always taught as kids to
the thing is with them though, they had a choice. You kids never had a choice, and that's got to be made clear.
Yeah, of course. You know what? You know, if you're going to go into a job where you're looking after kids and you're going to beat them and abuse them, you know, there's definitely something wrong with your mentality.
Without a doubt.
You know, I've been on some jobs. I've hurt people. I've done lots of things in my life. I would never dream of hurting a woman. I would never dream of hurting a kid. No. You know, it's just there's some moralistic things in your upbringing. Even though I was
even kicking an animal.
I wouldn't. You know, I love my animal. You know, I've got my dog. You know what? But you know what? We were. You know, when I left care and I had my own kids. You know, I would never touch my kids. No, you know what? We brought them up. We brought them up to talk, to articulate, and not to hit each other. And you know what? And they're all well adjusted.
And that's really the ultimate thing here, because with articulation becomes freedom, the ability to express yourselves. Yeah. You know, and if we look, and I know we're going to go on about stats and the failings in all these systems, but if we look at the lower categories of prison, there's a 75% illiteracy rate. How on God's earth, in a first world country like this, have we got 75% of the youth inside not able to read or write?
Well, that's easy, because you know the kids that actually need it are the most destructive. Yeah. The kids that actually need it exclude themselves from class because most of them can't read, or they're embarrassed, or they don't want to be shown up in front of their peers. And unfortunately, the criminal justice system perpetuates that. Yeah. By everyone going in prison who's who's had all the benefits in life, a degree, gone to college, gone to university. They go in there and they go, oh, hold up, he's actually good for the classroom. He'll help. So they then put all these guys through, because it's all done on a reward basis inside prison. You get bonuses for everyone that goes through the class and does a certain level 1, 2, 3, and advanced. Well, you can put these guys who've got great educations through every single day. Like you can churn them out, and then you can just go to the cash machine and cash that audit out. You take this 40% that keep coming in and out of prison, and you take them into a classroom. You're not going to get them through there the first time, second time. You've really got to work with these guys, and that's the problem with the system. We've got to stop working on bonus systems and auditing. We've got to start turning these guys' lives around. Yeah. You know, and we've got to give them some self-worth. We've got to give them an education. We've got to give them a trade, and we've got to give them somewhere to live when they get out, because I think it's 93% of guys coming out of prison come out homeless.
Yeah. Can we talk about this? Because there's something you said to me. They basically got a scam going here.
Massive scam all across the British justice system, and I'll tell you how it works.
Can you explain this?
I had a conversation the other day with an ex-governor who I met him on Twitter, and he actually said that in the last 6 months, 55 inmates that have left Ford and Spring Hill have all left with somewhere to live. Statistically, the white paper shows that. And you know what? That's correct. Right. He's 100% correct.
On statistic level?
Yeah, no. 150 people left there and they left with somewhere to live. Yeah. That's statistic. That he can prove that, and that's right. Yeah. But the way they do this is that when you leave, you have to get a travel warrant. Now, to get that travel warrant, you have to give a postcode or an address. Yeah. Then once you give that postcode and address, that's classed as a successful rehousing. Right. Even though you haven't got anywhere to live, but now that's a successful rehousing. And on the day you leave...
So it shows prison's done its job. That they've left and they've got somewhere to live.
Exactly.
They're integrated.
But also on the last day that you leave and you say, I've got I'm going out, no fixed abode, they actually turn around and say, we haven't got any procedures set up for you leaving, no fixed abode. So give me a postcode. And they say, I haven't got nowhere to live, I haven't got a postcode. Yeah. They say, well, listen, you can't leave prison until 5 o'clock tonight. Yeah. And you know, you've got a guy at R8 that wants to get back into the real world. Yeah. He's going to give a postcode. Hence, 55 people or 155 people that left prison. Left with somewhere to live.
And what they're now classing as going to prison is making yourself permanently.
Oh yeah, and once you go to the council, when you come out of prison, you go to the council and you go, right, I've lived in this borough all my life. They say, hold on a minute, how long have you lived in this borough at the moment? They
deliberately homeless.
They say, yeah. You say, well, I've been in prison. They say, well, in that case, you've made yourself intentionally homeless.
Intentionally homeless.
You now have to prove to the council that you've lived in the borough for 5 years. Yeah. So it's catch-21, and the funny thing is, you then go and live on someone's city who's got a council place. You then go and try and claim benefit, but they won't give you benefit because that person lives in the council house.
Claiming at that house.
So the person who's actually give you somewhere to live and done you a favour, you can't even give them any money.
Yeah.
So it's crazy.
And if we look at those that that are paid to intervene with the system, the solicitors, the social workers, the professionals, and all that, all make a good living out of it. Yet the recidivism rate is 75 to 80%. And I mean, it's just nonsense.
There's a revolving door of recidivism, and there's a simple reason for that again. you know, education, a trade, and somewhere to live.
And
3 simple things that we seem to be negating in most prisons now.
and the other thing I call out, and it upsets people, but I say, men, be fathers. Don't abandon your children. Be fathers. If you let your children, you abandon them, you're leaving them open. These walls will come about. A lot of my stuff is about child abuse, you know, and the single parents, they are like a light to these moths.
They're magnets.
Magnets that come in and all that. You know, if you have a child, look after it and make sure you're there. I know relationships break down, but at least give it a go, you know?
Yeah, you know, there's nothing you can do once you're in prison. So, you know, I can only speak from my own experience. You know, I was quite fortunate enough. I had a really good ex-girlfriend and used to bring the kids up and everything else. And I also maintained a real good relationship with them. You know, just because someone's in prison doesn't mean the relationship breaks down. You know, we've got phones inside prison. You can phone your kids every night. It doesn't stop. Just because you're in prison, the relationship doesn't stop. In fact, it actually enhances your relationship with your kids, because you know what? Before I went in prison, I was out on the piss. I was out doing drugs. I was out womanising. I was in all different countries around the world. But I never ever got an opportunity to speak to my kids. But when I was in prison, I actually spoke to my kids in the afternoon, in the mornings, and in the evenings. And when I had a visit, I actually sat down with them for 2 hours on a visit and had meaningful conversations. So it ain't the end of the world.
No.
However, you know, as a father, I should never have left them in the first place.
But so you ended up in this situation, they put you in this care home at 11, you're brutalised and you're now progressing, you know, through the system. And what they're doing to you, you know, that they are totally and utterly turning you into a very aggressive...
Well, they actually kicked me out of the community home, and then they put me into a flat in Swiss Cottage in a place called Dorney Towers.
Right.
I was, I think, 15 then, one of the youngest kids to actually go into care, into a flat on my own. And there was 2 other guys living there.
Is that on Adelaide Road?
Adelaide Road, yeah. And both these guys were armed robbers. So I was quite a big kid. I was doing trampolining, I was running, I was boxing, everything else. These guys were big as well. And so we had a sort of a kindred spirit. I was a Londoner, they were both Londoners. I was big and I liked the sport.
How much older were they?
They were 21, 22.
Oh, right, okay,
I was 15.
Right.
And then they asked me if I wanted to earn some money. And the next thing I knew, I was out doing robberies. So I was doing post offices, building societies, and a couple of banks. And I was only 15. Cool. So by 16 years old, I was like a seasoned armed robber, and I was going around doing 2 or 3 post offices every other week. Cool. And I just running in, you know, it was crazy. You know, I thought this was great, because like I never had no education, and you know, everyone had looked down their nose at me, and look at me now, I'm getting fucking $3,000 every day. Yeah. And most people are only nicking 150 quid of wages, and I'm living like a king.
I bet they weren't getting that a year, some of them.
Well, yeah, but you know what? That came at a massive cost.
I bet it did, yeah.
You know, after 2 years, I had a kid. I had a kid when I was in community home, and I was seeing my kid, and I was getting on really well. I was going back and forth, and then I started doing the robberies, and then all of a sudden, I rented out a flat. I went home one day and opened the door, and next thing, the whole place exploded with old Bill, and up until that moment, I actually thought it was a game. Yeah. You know, I was robbing places. The old Bill were after me, but I never really thought too much about it. I was like a Robin Hood. I felt that the world owed me. Yeah. Because of being in care, everything. I had this skewed idea that I was doing something good. I
suppose the ego was...
Oh, the ego, everything. I had a massive fucking ego, there's no doubt about it. And I thought I could take what I wanted, and that was it. And then all of a sudden I'm laying down spread eagle on the floor, I've been kicked in the bollocks, whacked in the face, and all of a sudden I've got guns in my head, and I'm thinking, fuck me, this ain't a game.
Is this a Hendon Flying Squad?
Yeah, this is the Hendon. They were the robbery squad there, and they were quite vicious. But you know what, they caught me, and fair enough, they gave me 4 years. Right. And then I ended up in Ashford.
When you say beat you, what would they do to you?
They'd punch and kick the fuck out of me. That's it. That's what they do.
I mean, there'd come a point where your body would be absolutely... Do
you know what they did? They'd come in 3 or 4 rounded, and they'd run at you. Whack, 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 and then they go out. You know, and I'd be there and I think, what the fuck is wrong with these guys?
Did you ever get an explanation?
No, they were just sadistic. You know, I said, you know, what happens? I can remember going down there the first day, and I made a bed pack. That's they called me out and said, make the bed pack up.
You was probably used to that anyway.
Yeah, because all the other place I lived in, I made it was perfect. You could bounce a fucking sixpence on it. Yeah, and then they said, that's shit, kicked it, and then beat me, and then they dragged me all the way to my cell, and they threw me through sideways, so I hit my head and my legs, and then they kicked me, and I grabbed hold of the bed and I pulled out, and that's when the screw came in, and he whacked his shin on the metal bed, and he went fucking Gary. He was trying to kick me and everything else, but over that first month, as I said, other geezers come down now. And they used to do the same to them, and it seemed to be normal. It was their bit of sport, because all they were doing is sitting in the office talking. They had a radio in there, never had a telly to screws. They were bullshitless.
I mean, I remember when I first joined the police, and we'd been filming today, and we was at Plumstead, and there was a policeman there, and he worked at Carter Street, which was the Elephant and Castle, and had a bad reputation. And he said to me, "Son, I want you to know something about me. I've had a fight every day for 19 years. I'm not going to stop now."
Yeah.
And he went out. And he got hold of a bloke, and he threw a bloke on the floor, wrapped his hair around his hand, and smashed it on a manhole cover.
Yeah.
And smashed his head open. And he
yeah.
did stuff like that every day.
Do you know what it is? It's all right to be a hard man when you've got 10 people standing with you.
Of course, yeah.
You know,
yeah,
I've met a lot of hard men with 3 or 4 of them behind.
Yeah,
but you know what? That's who they are. That's,
Yeah.
That's who
I think it gets in their blood. It's like wife beating.
Yeah.
The first one starts, and then it's endemic then.
I think my only saving grace in them days is that the survival rate of an ex prison officer after leaving prison was 5 years.
Was it really?
Yeah, so that was the only saving grace.
Was that because they were all
They were on the piss all the time,
Yeah.
and they died very early. So
Yeah.
you know what? Knowing that sort of made it a little bit more bearable.
And not only that, there will be quiet times when you sit back, if you've been involved in it, thinking that was wrong. What I did was wrong.
It was all wrong, but you know what? It was a normal in days. You know.
And it was, yeah.
I can't stress enough. Just walking along the street back in Royal College Street when I was there, and the old boys would pull up beside me and say, "Get in the car."
Yeah.
So what have I done? Just get in the fucking car.
Get in, yeah.
I'll get in the middle of it and say, "What are you doing?" So doing fuck off, what, you know, and they drive along. One of them would elbow you, and one of them would punch you in the bollocks and say, "Get the fuck out of the car. Carry on doing what you're doing and see if we get off us." And then that would be, I'll be sitting on the side of the road, and I'll be thinking, fucking hell.
Was it usually King's Cross they took you?
King's Cross boys and the Kentish Town, and sometimes I got pulled in and I went to the Queen's Park up in Kilburn.
Oh, Kilburn on the corner of Salisbury Road.
That was a place, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there wasn't very in Kilburn probably the worst. Old Bill, they were the worst.
Yeah, the Harrow Road had a reputation as
Yeah,
well for being.
Kilburn was really bad. I got pulled a few times by them, and they never took no prisoners. They were just straight on you, give you a kicking in the van, and then you know what they actually did? One time they actually took me to the State Cinema and beat me up in the back of the van and threw me out.
Did they?
Yeah, they said, "Look, fuck off, that's it. Carry on doing what you're doing, that's it." But we wasn't even doing anything.
Yeah.
But they had their targets, and if they thought you was there, it wasn't about anything
Yeah,
else.
I know when we was there, it come up in the briefing, you know.
Yeah, it was just about getting you off the street that day. You know, I don't know what they thought. I think you know, they had an idea they could beat you into submission. But you know, as you said about dogs, if you beat a dog, it's only going to get worse and worse.
Oh,
and
of course
worse.
it is. Of course it is.
The only time I've ever changed is when I went to Greenwich.
I mean, I'm on the street all the time. I go on most of the people in my group now. I say there's a girl, one of the street girls. She's now partnered up with us. I've got a bloke called Billy Maloney, a lovely guy, been in and out of all the institutions, and a tough guy in his day. I do a lot with Chris Lambriano, and I go amongst these communities and all that, and I go amongst there with safety because I want safety for our children, and that's what I want. And what we got to do, we got to bring all of this rot out, and it needs to be highlighted and spoken about. It cannot be allowed to be covered up.
I know for a fact that, you know, everybody I met in prison had been abused through the care system.
Yeah.
Everyone I met was either dyslexic or they come from abusive families.
Yeah, bad.
And you know what? There's a pattern.
Oh.
You know, and I know geezers that have had really good lives and
Yeah.
they've been looked after and they lead very productive lives.
You don't need a degree in psychology for this one, Terry, do you?
I know. So you know what? So there is a cause and effect and a pattern, upbringing, social, everything else. But if you treat someone, you know what? Even if I was born into poverty, even if I had a mum that was an alcoholic or whatever, you know what? I could have still grown up, gone to school, and had a normal life.
Yeah, of course.
But the minute you start beating a kid, the minute he's going to start retaliating,
of course, it's
and
changing.
start thinking,
It's a game changer, isn't
if
it?
you think that the people that are supposed to look after you are the screws and the old Bill, and they're the people who abuse you, and the people in the care system, all the people that I was supposed to look after me, abuse me.
But you're then marginalised because you've got a total distrust of any authority. And it's like my lovely mate Bill, he said, I couldn't work for anyone because anyone in charge of me was an abuser in my eyes. So I could never gain employment. I had to do it on my own, and this is what happens again.
And the trouble is the minute they hear my voice, or the minute they see out, because I was quite animated, I was quite forceful, you know, because that's what it made me. I was unemployable.
Yeah.
You know, I couldn't go in and get employed because I was seen as someone who's hard, aggressive.
Would you get triggered easy as well by things?
Yeah. When I was in prison, yeah. If someone drove past me and they looked at me wrong or they pulled in front of me, I'd get out of the car. What the fuck are you doing? I was so aggressive. I can't believe how I used to be. And I train kids now. I teach them about ego, about embarrassment, about shame, about that doesn't physically.
And you don't drink, do you? You
don't drink.
Smoke,
I don't smoke.
Yeah.
And there's a reason for that. You know, because I can mention Grendon, yeah.
Yeah, please.
I had an opportunity.
Can you tell people what Grendon is? A lot of Americans watch it.
Yeah.
What Grendon is?
Well, what happens? I went to Grendon.
So this was during a heavy sentence that you're doing.
I just got.
Right, let's have a look. Let's give this a big plug, right? Is this the one, or is it?
It's called Living Amongst the Beasts.
Yeah. So can people get this? Is there an ISBN number?
Yes, it's on Amazon.
On that,
it's actually a bestseller on Amazon.
Please, there we go. That will come out backwards, but we have another camera going. So it's Living Amongst the Beasts, the rise and fall of the Grendon experiment by Terry Ellis.
Yeah.
So please purchase that and tell us about Grendon. What Grendon is?
Grendon was basically about talking about my past.
And it is a prison.
It's a prison.
Right.
Basically, it was about screwing my head off and then emptying all the crap that was out. And the only way I could do that was by speaking about it. I've never ever spoken about being abused, being hit, about my mum putting me in care, talking about abandonment issues. So this is the first time I'd ever gone, but I was also surrounded by child killers, wife killers, rapists, paedophiles, and all manner of despicable crimes.
You said also some Satanists.
Lots of goths and black Satanists. I was actually so surprised by them lot because going into a man's cell and it's all blacked out, all black walls and all crosses upside down on the wall. It's actually quite disconcerting, especially when you know that he's killed his whole family. So going there, I took a big gamble, but I volunteered to go there because you know what.
Hence the name of the book, Living Amongst the Beasts. It literally is what it is.
Is what it was. Well, I was in a mainstream prison and nothing was happening. The rehabilitation wasn't working. All the course I was going, I wasn't getting through. They just wasn't working. So I got offered an opportunity to go here. I volunteered, and there's only 228 people in this prison at any one time. And they're some of the worst prisons in the country, the most dangerous and everything else. And then I had to go through an induction process to see if I had the aptitude for it. But in that 3 month,
why would that work? So the aptitude is your cognitive ability, your mental ability.
So you have to have reasoning,
a degree of understanding.
You have to have sort of reasoning, understanding, and articulation and intelligence. So because you know what, as soon as you walk in, you sign a compact, no violence, and you're talking about people that are going to tell you about your mannerisms, your ego, your everything. The way you walk, the way you talk, and even your criminal values.
And they're going to take you back to dark times.
And they're going to take you right back to the. Because what happens? We start talking about the things that don't affect us. Yeah. But all of a sudden, we start talking about the things that do. And I was so shocked that when I started talking about my mum leaving me that day. Such an innocuous little thing. I used to break down in tears. That to me was the first day the tap opened.
That's the broken child. That was 11-year-old. Someone said to me, a profiler said that will be the gateway to emotion.
That was it.
As an 11-year-old, yeah.
So when I started talking about that, my brothers, my sisters, and being in care, about leaving my own family, and then as I started talking about that, I started to feel empathy, and I'd never felt that before. I also listened to some of these guys, which taught me tolerance, because when you've got a guy next to you, he told me that I've just killed my 6-year-old kid, and actually telling me that the kid wanted to die because the kid wanted to go to heaven. It took all my strength not to turn around and weigh him in. Yeah. So, but he's saying that. But being in their company taught me tolerance. And I also had to work on. I had to get to a place in my therapy that I couldn't judge these guys anymore. No. I had to start thinking about me and the therapy that I wanted to do. It was about working on me. So once I realised that after 5 or 6 months, the therapy that I was doing actually was really beneficial because I started to talk about the things that actually affected me the most. And they was the things about going in care, about as I said, my mum, and also, just my lifestyle, and also becoming a victim. I think you have to become a victim before you can start empathy. Yeah. So because I never ever saw myself as a victim, even though when I was getting beaten, I never saw myself.
And also
as a victim.
looking in the mirror and knowing that you've been selfish, you've been self-absorbed, you know.
You know what? You know, if any man tells you that he doesn't feel anything when he's got his kids outside, you know, I spent hundreds of thousands of pounds every year on prostitutes. You know, I had a nice big house down the road. My girlfriend was Sadie Frost, a sister called Sunshine.
Oh, yeah.
I was out with Jude Law, Kate Moss every night doing fucking bits and pieces. You know, and the life I was living was great. Champagne every night. You know, going out to dinner, and then my kids were at home.
Yeah, yeah.
I was in a council flat. You know, and sometimes when I think of that, I think, what a fucking arsehole I was.
Yeah.
And you know, and that was another thing. So you know what, I had to go all the way through this, you know, to become the person I am now. You know, it's only by dealing with that I could actually move forward.
I know it's on a minor level, Terry, but when I was as detective, there is this lifestyle like very similar like that. Not with, I never saw the coke, but there was loads of them on it. I know that. I can remember one day buying a bloke I worked with a pint. I should have been at home.
Yeah.
And my kids got themselves home from school, and you know they wanted me to be there cooking them dinner, and I was out with these arseholes from my work, and I didn't really like them, to be honest. You know, and those that know me know I'm not on about them. And I remember buying this bloke a pint, and it was about £4, and I couldn't stand him. He was a tosser, and I bought him a pint, and I went home, and I can remember my boy wanted a kebab, and he wanted this special one, and it was an extra £1. And I said, "You ain't having it," and shouted at him. And I thought to myself, I just bought £4 on a wanker, and that's my own kid. And you know, so I know it's minor, but it's,
no. You know what? This is what we do. That's what we do. We try to maintain that lifestyle. We live above it. The trouble with being a criminal is that you can't have a week off or a month off. You have to keep doing it all the time. You know, so you know, I was constantly going out and putting myself on the line.
Did you find also when you was with these celebrities, they found kudos in the fact that they had like a so-called gangster around them?
I think there was a few on the periphery. Yeah. You know, they like to be surrounded by guys that were handy. Yeah. If we, you know, I remember going out with Jude loads of times. You know, Sean McGregor. I went to Sean Pertwee's wedding. And they like to have people around them that they can actually start. They can actually talk big, knowing that we were at the background. So if anything did happen, we would come in. Yeah. You know. So you know what? Yeah. But it's a very. Well,
they live in an ego-driven world as well, don't they?
Yeah. It's very. They're
as much as victim as everyone else when you look at it.
Yeah, you know, most of them were brought up in the way they were. They went through RADA. They were pushed to be in the people they were.
And there's a lot of cocaine addiction in it. Well, there's a lot of unhappy people. You know, I mean, we were just on about Amy Winehouse earlier, and you sat there and looked at how she lived, and you think, well, where was the happiness there? You know. Yeah,
you know, once drugs come into your life, you know, because you know what, you know, the one thing I learned when I was in Grendon was how to deal with boredom. You know, and I used to self-medicate. I used to drink, self-medicate all the time. Yeah. It was only when I started learning about boredom.
How do you deal with boredom then?
Well, you know what? You know, we had a policy there that you couldn't have your television on. Yeah. And what you then had to do, you couldn't sit in your cell. You had to come out of your cell and you had to start socialing with people. So most people isolate themselves. It's easy to do that.
It's getting worse now with these mobile phones, isn't it?
Well, you know what? It's saying that. You know, I actually use my phone all the time. I meet a lot of people online, so you know, saying, but you know, there's a media skill. You know, you get really good, and a lot of people earn some money. The social skills, social etiquette is completely different. And the good thing about Grendon is that even though these people are standing in front of me, rapists, paedophiles, everything else, I started to I had to get out of my cell and I had to have conversations with them, and then I started to realise that 99% of who they were was like me. They had families, they had brothers, they had sisters, and everything else.
There's a lot of broken child, is it?
And and the more I spoke to them, and the more I spoke to the wife killers and everything else, they all said the same thing. They've been abused as kids. They've all been battered. They've all been drunken fathers, and they've all been. I mean, as I getting back to medication for 1 second, when I sorted out me and I was able to look at me in a way, because it took 2 years to get through to me. I tried to pack up drinking, smoking for years. I could never do it. Yeah. The minute I'd done therapy and looked at me, and that's what I write all the way through. There's loads of epiphanies that I learned through the book. That's why I wrote the book. So I wanted to educate people and teach them the tricks that I learned. Not necessarily tricks, the behaviours and the things that I went through. If you do exactly what I say in the book, and you have no other option apart from to change.
I'm going to read it. Yeah? I'm going to read it. I think I need it.
So what happened is when I did come out, I didn't have the desire to go and womanise again. I didn't have the desire to drink again or even smoke. So all of a sudden I was so free. But what it did, it then allowed me to live like a normal person. I didn't have to spend like £200 or £300 a week on drink and booze and birds.
Yeah.
So now I live a simple life. I've got a lovely girlfriend, I've got a lovely home, I've got my dog. But you know what? I don't have to go out, I don't have to thieve.
Yeah.
I don't have to earn £500 a week. You know, I live very basic. I go over the heath, I walk with the dogs, I go swimming and everything else.
You've got them beautiful ponds in Highgate, they're fantastic, aren't they?
But the good thing about, you know, if there is a good thing about prison, is one I learned about myself in Greenland. Secondly, being away from my family, being away from everyone here, and, you know, even food, everything else. Being able to come out and see colours for the first time. Yeah. You know, when you're in prison, you see dreary old colours every single day. You can't walk more than 50 foot. Yeah. So to walk in a straight line down the street.
This is the other thing. Your vision is very stunted, isn't it? You know.
Well, once I used to stand by a gate, and even though it was open, you know, you get to that stage where you're just waiting for an officer to open it. You're waiting for an officer to open the fucking door. So
that's called institutionalisation, isn't it?
But you know, because you just get used to it, and all of a sudden I'm in the middle of Hampstead. Yeah. I'm in all the restaurants, the cafes, and everything else, and I'm walking over Hampstead with my dog and the ponds and my girlfriend. And I'm thinking, I can actually see the leaves, I can see the veins in them. I can see
mindfulness.
But you know, you start to appreciate things so much better. And you know, and there's another ingredient, and you know, it's probably the elephant in the room. Yeah. Is I became a born again Christian.
It's God, man. It's God.
And I got baptized.
Oh man, yeah. Same here, mate. Same here. It's like, with me, I want to expose the evil that's hurting our kids, and I've got to do that with the armour of God behind me, because there's darkness out there. You know,
I was in Spring Hill. I wrote a book about it called Resettlement, and you know what?
Is that in a separate book? Is it?
It's in a separate book.
Can we give that a hold out?
It's a Resettlement.
So you've written this with Alice
Chris Alston is my editor.
Right.
So we're really good friends, so we shared it. I wrote it. It's called Resettlement. The final countdown to my freedom.
Can you just explain this picture? It's like a railroad.
We're going to change this picture. It's going to have Camden Town on there eventually. Right, okay. You'll be able to get this on Amazon in about 3 weeks.
Right. Okay. And can you explain what this book's about?
This is about resettlement. So what I did, I saw so many people coming into prison again and again and again on that 8-year sentence, because they were all leaving homeless. Yeah. One simple little thing. They left homeless and they were living on people's cities. They then started drinking, got in trouble. Some were moving into people that had mental health problems. So you know what? It was actually better for them to come back in prison. So they got their own cell, their 3 meals a day, and they never got no hassle. Because outside, it was a world that they had changed. I know for myself, after 8 years, the world had changed. Yeah. And I wrote that book for a good friend of mine called Ash. Right. Now, Ash had done, like many lifers I met in prison. They do it, they do all the courses, and they beat themselves up constantly. And about a year before they get out, they commit suicide. You know, so I can remember having Ash called me and said, like, "I got a nice curry for you, Tel." He's done me a mackerel curry. So I went up there, he done me a curry. I went and picked it up. I said, "I'll see you in the morning," and the bell went off. So I gave him a hug, and he said, "Listen, write to me, and I'll see you when I get out." Blah blah, because I was leaving the next day. Yeah. And then the next day the bell went off, and then someone said someone's had a heart attack upstairs, and then 2 hours later, one of my mates come down and said, "Fuck, you won't believe it." He said, "Ash killed himself last night."
What did he do?
He cut his wrist. And then he hung himself in the shower. And you know what? I never saw it. So I kept beating myself up. You know, did I miss something? You know, is there something that he said to me? You know, and I went through it a million times. And as I looked on the side, I still had his plate that I was going to give him back before I left. Yeah. But you know what? And then I found out it happens to a lot of guys. Lots of guys do life sentences and long sentences, and they come out. They're lost. They've got nowhere to live. Yeah. They've got no education. The world's moved on, and all they do is drink. And you know, I think we've had in the last 11 years, I think we've had nearly 3,000 suicides.
Oh, it's horrendous. And this is one thing I want to talk about. We go on about this COVID, you know, I don't want to fall into that deep dark hole that is the argument on there. I don't know anyone who's died from it. I've known 10 people die of suicide this year, 10 people. Yeah. You know, it's horrendous. And that isn't taking into account the deaths through alcoholism, drug addiction, and poor health because of self-worth.
I think, you know, I think as I was saying, the reason I became born again Christian inside prison not because I was captured inside prison, because I never went to church all the time I was in prison. I always thought it was a meeting place for mugs, and all the people that I saw there, they were all going there to pass drugs anyway, and all the people that worked on there were all lifers that had killed women. So all they were doing is trying to find atonement.
Yeah.
So I never went, and then I went to Spring Hill. There was a nice little church in the attic there. I met some people there, and I'd done the Alpha course.
Right.
And you know what? I got baptised, but there was a massive epidemic of spice inside prison.
Yeah.
And you know what? I can remember walking down past all the huts.
And let's just explain what spice is. Spice is what they call a legal high, isn't it?
Yeah.
Let me just flick that up so I've got something come up on there.
It's an hallucinogenic drug. It was actually for fish. It was actually when you were transporting carp, you put the spice in it, and what it does, it works as a tranquilizer to calm them down, so they wouldn't.
So you've got what's ketamine, which is a horse tranquilizer, and spice is a fish tranquilizer.
But what they do, they sprinkle it with something else, psychotropic stuff.
Right.
This is normal
reality. Life. Yeah.
This happens every single day of the week. You've got grown men who are so bored because you know what? As I said, the rehabilitation programs don't work, and you know what? You know, as much as people can stand in front of me and say they do, I'd tell you something. I've done every single rehabilitation program. It don't work. Yeah. I know lifers that have done every prison rehabilitation and will swear blind in front of their probation officer, their care managers, and everything else because they have to. They have to give the perception of change simply because they want to get out.
But you get the same with the sex offenders. A very deceptive mindset behind that as well.
Well, another reason why I wrote "Living Amongst the Beasts" is that I noticed that the majority of people who went now were actually a tick box. So they were given the perception of change. But I also thought they were being set up to be more proficient predators. But the reason they got nicked in the first place is because they was inept. Yeah. You know, they made silly mistakes. They acted on their impulses.
And a lot of sex offenders, we you know, and I'm not judging. I'm just going what I perceive to be the truth. There will be a progression through criminality. With them, a lot of them don't get caught. And if they do, it tends to be for deception because...
If you look at a sex offender, they're manipulated by nature, devious.
Very devious,
These guys spend years getting into your company as a friend.
Very, very patient.
To molest your kids, get into school, play, headmasters, teachers, everything else. So they manipulate like that. So what they do, they go to Grendon. Yeah. And they then... Because, most of them are doing 20 years and they've been told, you're not going to come out until you show us that you've changed. So what better place to go to Grendon and say, right, I've actually worked on myself. Because I saw what they were like in front of the screws, I saw what they were like in front of the psychologists, and then I saw what they were like to each other, and the way they treated each other, and the way they voted each other out. And that's why another reason I said I wrote a book is because Grendon is supposed to be a democratic prison. So what happens? You can be voted out by a paedophile, a rapist, or someone else. So if they don't like your face, they can all gang up on you. So I felt that there was a deviant mafia there.
Yeah.
And what they did, if they didn't like you, they would vote you out.
Oh my God.
So and I thought this is unworkable simply because if I don't walk the way they walk and I play their game, then they're going to vote me out. So why did I keep to myself?
And especially if they're predatory and you're not playing that game as well.
You know what? I saw one guy in particular. He when people act on their impulse, they can't stop themselves. And he was a predator. He killed his mum and dad, but he was also a predator. What he did, he touched a lady officer, and as he walked past, he touched her, and she turned around and said, "What are you doing?"
But he denied it, didn't he?
And he said, "Well, I never did it." So he said, I'm putting you in the book. I'm going to put you in the book. She actually put him in the book, and she went on holiday. But what he did in that 2 weeks that she was on holiday, that he actually went to his psychologist and his care manager, who was looking after him, and said that he believed that she was having an affair with an inmate. Also, that she had brought a telephone in for this inmate. So what happened over that 2 weeks? He had got these two guys kicked out of there and got her suspended. Right. So basically, what he was doing, the same way what he did, he stole his parents' money. So what he did, when he knew it was closing in on him,
what a snake!
He killed both of them. Yeah. And what he did, it was closing in on them again. Yeah. And then he killed them. He killed all of them. So he was acting out his behaviour.
He total psychopath.
But they believed him.
Yeah.
And they kept him on. Yeah. He then became a model. He became the chairman.
Yeah, would do.
He actually was a family rep.
Yeah.
Even after killing his own family.
I mean, I find that with the stuff to do with Satanists, they will get themselves involved with the church. They will organise this, and they've always got to organise something and be a manager.
Yeah.
And
they have to, for me, it was I found with most of the people who worked in the church, it was about atonement. If they can convince God and they can convince the vicar, then you know what? There's a good possibility they can reach the.
Well, if they think that they're going to convince God, I mean,
but, it's all smoke and mirrors.
Yeah,
and the funny thing is because there's such a low turnout now for the Christian faith inside most mainstream.
Well, we've become godless, haven't we? We've become godless.
I think I only found it when I went to Spring Hill. Because you know what, I met some real great people there because they were allowed to come in from outside.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, in mainstream prison, you've got the vicar. You don't, he's there because he has to be. You got the imam, you got the Jewish faith, and everything else.
Yeah, they've got a thing called Prislam. There's a lot of people convert to Islam.
Because they have to have their protection.
Yeah.
But you know what? I never ever felt anything going to them. It was just a service.
Yeah.
But I went to the service there, and I was singing. We was worshipping. You know what? And they asked me. They said, Terry would like to be baptised, and they said, you know what? Come to us and let us do the rest. That's the God. And I said, yeah, man, let's do this. And
because it's mind, body, and soul. People forget the soul.
But my life after that day changed so much.
Yeah.
Do you know what? As I said, I was dyslexic. I then went and wrote 4 books on the trot.
Yeah.
I wrote 270 poems. And it went out of me. I'm still doing them books now. Do you know, a bit? I seem to be infused, and since I come out of prison, I've started Scoff Mills up, a company.
Well, you're filling a void, aren't you? And you fill it with goodness.
But you know what? And then I started Campaign Against Violence. For the in the area, and then we started Change Your Life, Put Down the Knife. But you know what? For the last 3 months.
So what is this thing, Scoff Mills?
We do nutritious meals for gyms and people that want to lose weight or they want to build up or anything. It's a quite a quality of life.
Yeah.
So it's about eating right and doing a bit of training and leading a productive life. So we've done that. So we set it up. Because I couldn't get a job.
Where can people find it? Can they find it online?
They can find it on Instagram.
Right.
Because I couldn't get a job. Everywhere I went, I'd say, well, I've got a criminal record, so no.
Yeah.
So what we decided to start a business, I paid myself 200 quid a week.
Yeah.
I've done it for the last couple of years now. So it's not a lot of money, but you know what? I don't have to sign on.
No.
I don't have to ask anyone for any money. And I work from 6 o'clock in the morning to 7 o'clock at night.
And God provides.
And God provides the rest because, come to me and let me do the rest.
Yeah.
And the funny thing was, we shut down. We shut down when the COVID first started. And we went on spoke to a lady called Vicky Patterson on Geordie Shore. She then put a shout out to a load of organisations, Kellogg's, Ovis, and all these other guys, and said, could you donate some food so we can do some homeless people? Because I saw a load of homeless people.
But this is what I do on a Thursday. I donate, get loads of food. I pick them up in my van, and I go and deliver food parcels all around London. Yeah.
So what we done? We then went to Yay Hire. It's an organisation. They got a big warehouse in up the road here. So can we borrow your warehouse? And the guy said, yes, of course you can.
Oh, brilliant.
You know what? We thought we was going to have 1 lorry for the stuff.
Yeah.
I think we had about 15, 16 lorries in the space.
You.
We ended up doing 10,000 care packages for Age Concern and all the homeless people in Camden. So you know what? Giving back and giving something to the community is so.
And it's good for the soul.
It's good for the heart.
It is. It's so good. I mean, I get attacked all the time because I speak out against Satanism and abuse, and I get some very manipulative people in there, and I say to them, do you know what? Instead of sitting there trolling, go and do something. It's good for your soul. Get out and do something.
People say there's no such thing as Satanism inside prison. They're crazy.
Oh,
you know what? I used to go into prisons. I used to listen to them. So when that rock music come on, I used to listen to them, and these guys would be so mild mannered. I'd speak to them in the daytime, and they wouldn't get boo out of them. And then all of a sudden I'd hear them going, fuck. And I'd go in there and I'd go, was that you?
What are you doing? Yeah.
And you know what? But they would be animated, they were fucking aggressive, and you know what? And it was like I could spot them a mile away because they had a certain look, a certain walk, and certain mannerisms. And when I actually met them and I found out what they were in for, there was definitely a certain evilness in them.
Yeah.
But you know what? It wasn't evil that I've known people that have killed people.
Yeah.
I've got friends of mine who've killed and stabbed people.
Yeah.
They've been in situations. My friends are bad people.
Yeah.
But these fucking people are evil.
Yeah, evil.
I saw these people.
No, I'm with you. There is a difference. There's a malevolence.
And the guy I was actually talking about, who killed his mum and dad.
Yeah.
He was very feminine. He was very very low. He spoke very low. Yeah. But saying every now and then I'd see him switch. And I'd see fucking. It's like there was a devil in his eyes.
Do you know that's really funny because there's a guy I do a lot of stuff with in America. He's an ex-cop. He's an exorcist now. Yeah. And he said something to me. He said, have you ever met anyone purely evil? I said, yeah.
I've.
And he said, what is it? I said, it is in the flick of a blink, and you see this person that you don't recognise, and then boom, it goes back again.
I saw it so many. I've met guys who've chopped off people's limbs, and then gone past them, the girlfriend of the guy they've just killed and waved out like that. I've known guys chop people's fucking arms and legs and everything off. I've sat in that conversation. And you can see them reliving that stuff. You can see reliving that evil and just waiting for their time to come back again.
Yeah.
I'm a big guy. I can look after myself. But you know what? When I went to Grendon, And I've met lots of lifers over the years, but we never had these conversations of what I did at Grendon. And I never realised how evil this world is.
Oh, it's terribly evil.
You know?
Now, you're a big guy and you're listening to that. You imagine that malevolence on a 3-year-old kid.
Oh.
Do you know what I mean? And I talk to so many victims that happen to 3-year-olds, 2-year-olds, 4-year-olds, and they've got through it, and what it does to their minds and their bodies. And this is why I do what I'm doing. I want the world to wake up and realise there is absolute pure evil out there. And if people say to me, I don't believe in God, I said, do you know what? I don't care what you believe in. I'm not here to convert no one. I'm telling you now, they believe in their God.
Well, if you believe in the devil, you have to believe in God.
Exactly.
If you believe in God, you have to believe in the devil.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
There's a flip side. And a Christian might moan about spending 1 week in church. These people will spend all night praying to their darkness.
Yeah.
And we are seeing it building in this world because we have lost our faith. And we have. And I say to people, there is a God and he's good.
Yeah, you know what? I met lots of guys when I was on the last sentence in Spring Hill, and you know, they never ever been to church before, and I took them into church. Do you know what? They were aggressive. You know, they were isolating themselves.
Yeah.
You know what? The minute I took them into church and they started worshiping, you know what? I see the change. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Do you know what? You can't go any other way apart from belief.
Yeah.
You know, if you could do it by prayer and song and worship, change a whole man's mannerisms and everything else.
Yeah.
You know, I went to therapy for 2 years. I'd done a lot of work in therapy on myself, but I also saw the same work being done in church.
Yeah.
And that's why the first thing I do is I ask people
because
to come and worship.
it's appealing also to the soul. We're so two-dimensional, the mind and the body. There's another element to this, and anyone who's been in a near-death experience. I'll tell you about my journey, right? In this is that my son, in the middle of being attacked by the police, and I'm looking, going to prison and all that, only for exposing all this. My son was injured in such a terrible accident. He was gone. He was finished. He was dead. He was dead for 10 minutes. They had 3 consultants on him for 7.5 minutes. His body was battered where they've been doing everything. And they said, we've lost him.
Yeah.
But we've got a heart murmur back. He's on 100% resus. But if he pulls through, the machine will be turned off after 5 days because his brain's so damaged. And all I had was that chapel in that hospital.
Yeah.
And when I weren't holding his hand and praying, I was in there. And I said to God, and I turned around to God, I did a testimony to this. I said, if you expect me to go out there and help fight against paedophiles and Satanisms and save other people's children, you can go away. It ain't happening. Because I can't even save my own son. I need to save my son before I save anyone else's. My boy woke up.
Yeah.
Not only did he woke up, he couldn't even use his lungs. His spine was so damaged. He walked out the hospital, and I knew then that there was a God. And
I totally believe you, man. I've seen it.
Yeah.
I've seen the miracles.
Yeah.
You know, we I see them guys coming in now, broken, you know, hateful, you know, and I see them, you know, being reinvigorated.
And also,
you know?
Terry, whether people believe or not, we're all going to be on our deathbed. Every single one of us. I want to go on my deathbed knowing I did everything I could to fight evil.
Yeah.
And this is what I say when I'm out there with my gang, and they've come from every swathe of society. I'm telling you, you know, even when I sit with Chris Lambriano and all that, you know, and he invites me to do's and all that, the one thing that unifies us is that we're doing good.
Oh, yeah.
And it's lovely. It's so lovely.
You know what? You know, for me, I took all my life. I took, you know, because that's what I knew. And, you know, and then I worshipped, and now I give. You know, so you know what? It's, you know, the second half of my life is so fulfilling. Hopefully, it's not over yet. You know, by far.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping the next 10 years are going to be like miraculous.
Well, people are going to want updates and to keep in touch with you. What is it you're doing? Is there any way that people can get in touch if you do open yourself to that? Some people.
Yeah. You know, so I'm on Twitter at Terry Ellis 992.
Terry Ellis 992.
I'm on Instagram Terry Ellis 992, and I'm also on Facebook under Terry Ellis, and I'm also on a Facebook group, Living Amongst the Beasts. Your views matter.
Yeah.
And what I do, I get lots of people get in touch with me because since I wrote the book, I thought I was going to expose this and then give a few people some ideas how to change their life and talk about their thoughts and feelings to change their life. But what I did, I got letters from all around the world: America, Canada, everywhere, and I got mostly from women, believe it or not. But what it did, it empowered them to start talking about their abuse. And what it did, it started talking. A few of them actually gone to the police and actually told the police about their abusers.
And this is why we do an all.
So for me, it is, the overwhelming response I got from this has empowered me to actually carry on doing what I'm doing and exposing the wrong that's happening inside the criminal justice system, homelessness, paedophilia, and everything else, and also the care system. And setting young kids up on the path to fail. When we should be setting them up to succeed.
Yeah. And it's so easy to do. There's two things we need: time and love, and they're free.
Yeah.
I have felt nothing but pure empowerment sitting there talking to you. I've never felt this in an interview before.
That's right, brother.
I haven't, honest to God. It's been a team that was. Let's give these books a lovely shout out. We've done this one, Living Amongst the Beast. Please get a copy of this. I think for myself, I think I could take a lot from that because I've still got some of them old demons, especially with alcohol and all that.
This was a really hard journey. But I'm saying sometimes the hardest journeys have the best rewards.
Of course,
and that's what happened in that book. I didn't want to change. I didn't go to Grendon to change. I didn't think it was going to work.
No.
I wanted to expose it for what it was.
Yeah.
But you know what? Once I engaged in therapy, it only went one way. Change.
Yeah.
It's not the medicine that stops recidivism, but it definitely is the medicine that stopped me being an alcoholic, a drug abuser, a womanizer, and a criminal.
Yeah.
So you know what? I've
But the thing is, when we look, I mean, you've been on that side with all the celebrities and all we see, especially film for it's these celebrity gangster movers.
It's all false.
Of course it is, but they're promoting it and giving this false impression of what it is.
I wanted to break the mould of a criminal book.
Yeah.
I wanted to show people, because I cried a lot in this. I wanted to teach people that as much as I was a hardened criminal, the only way that I could find me was actually to go and do therapy and actually cry, let it all out. The minute I started crying, I let it out and let it out and let it out. It was like an incremental tap, bum bum bum. Yeah. And after it had all gone, I wasn't angry no more. And instead of being angry, I was able to have a conversation and articulate. Because my first reaction was fight or flight.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden I started to talk. I started to articulate. So instead of having an argument with someone, I would actually give them a real rounded response. And I saw that they engaged with me better. So by learning all these little tricks that you learn in the book, you learn how to communicate with people on such a different level.
But Terry, you still see that even people that said that they've done their time and all that, you can still see the torment in their face.
Yeah, you can see the 1,000 miles down.
You can, yeah.
I know someone who's been in prison by just looking at them.
Yeah,
I can see the way they look, the way they hold themselves, and the insecurities, because it's the bigger the defence, the bigger the ego, and everything else, the bigger the bowl, is the more the insecurities they got.
Yeah.
I don't go to the gym, but I do a little bit of training that goes running and everything else. I don't have to build myself up like I used to, but because all that does is build insecurities in you. I know now that this is not about putting an armour on, putting muscles on, and everything else is false.
But it's the same as the thing about tattooing. It's a self-harm. There's a pain. When you see it, there's an indicator of pain.
I can't believe people having tattoos on their face. You know what? And all on their arms.
And let's say there's an expert on self-harm is working with us now, and she's saying, go to an autopsy, John, of someone who is body tattooed. She said that ink goes into the lymphatic system. And when you see the guys that want to look good and all that, inside, that ink will be damaging the lymphatic system and it will be killing them.
Well, if you look at the biggest contributing factor to cancer with young geezers now, is steroids. Because what it does, because if you think of a steroid, it makes your muscles bigger. It also makes your heart bigger, and it fucks around with your heart sac. But what it also does, it accelerates cancer because it's a growth. Right. So once you put that in, where you had a little growth, everything grows. So now you're instead of having a cancer that side, you're having a cancer that side.
Fertilisers and weeds as well as your vegetables.
So on the outside you look great, but on the inside you're dying, and it's a bit like faith. Yeah. Unless you actually have a faith in your living. Yeah, you might as well just not be.
So I can't go through life without my faith. Every morning, and I thank God for what He's doing for me, and it makes me strong, man. It makes me so strong.
I get psalms every morning from one of my mentors, a guy called Paul Burgess. He lives up in Oxford. Right. He sent me Amazing Grace this morning. Oh yeah. He sends me a poem.
Well, you're saying Amazing Grace was the thing.
Yeah.
Someone confronted me once, and they were purely demonised. Yeah. And I spent, I think it's Psalm 34. I was reading it when my boy was in hospital, and I quoted it in front of this person, and they backed down from me. Honestly, go in my face.
Oh, listen, there's a lot of power in that book. You just got to read it.
This one I want to give a mention because there's going to be a lot of people, especially the families. If your child was going into prison, it must cause a lot of fear and a pain, and this basically.
For me, we don't want to sort of glorify prison.
Not
We
at
don't
all.
want to demonise it. We wanted to tell you the facts. You know what? If you abide by what we said now,
Yeah.
you're not going to get mixed up in the drugs.
Yeah.
You're not going to get mixed up in gangs. You know, but you're not even going to get in trouble. I went through my whole prison sentence with no fighting, no drugs, no nothing, because I did this.
Right.
You know, if you're going to get involved with drugs, you're going to get in drugs with that lifestyle.
Yeah.
If you're going to get involved with drugs, gangs, you're going to get stabbed.
Yeah.
So what is, I teach you all the things to do to circumnavigate yourself all the way through the system without
Bit of
getting
wisdom.
in trouble.
This is wisdom.
Wisdom. And also, to build a family network outside
Oh,
prison.
and this is Christopher Alston
Christopher
again.
Alston, and also if you look on the back, there's a guy called Joe Chapman. He's an ex-prison officer.
Oh, right, yeah, Joe, 44
with
years.
44 years experience. He wrote 17 pages in there. There's also a mindfulness section. There's yoga. There's art in there. There's everything to fill your time up while you're in prison. From the minute you get sentenced.
And this one is
the same
as that one. All right. So, well, look, we're let's just have a look. What I can't even see the comments now. They're coming up, but it's been flooding up. The comments been absolutely flooding up. But we're running low on battery now, so I'm going to just press that. I want to say an unbelievable thank you to you so much.
Brother. I really appreciate
Thank you so much, Terry. And please, if you need to get in touch with Terry or you want to get it through me, then let me know and then we can sort something out. But it's been a monumental pleasure, and what a good end or a lovely day.
Have a great evening.
God bless everyone.
And you, brother.